All right, guys, we are live. This is UFC 303 International Fight Week live recap show, the post fight show on sherdog.com. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. What a night of fights.
Yeah, what a night of fights. I'm going to get right into it. So if you guys watch this show, at least on YouTube, you'll see, and you watch this a lot. This is not my normal background. I am actually on the road. I am in Stowe, Vermont, which is the home of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And also for the older crowd, I am staying at the Von Trapp Family Resort. If for those who don't know what that means, probably majority of our listeners, Von Trapp family was the family in The Sound of Music. So I'm actually staying at where their family lived after they left Austria. And people might be like, Keith, why would you go there? Because, and I'm going to try to sprinkle as much Sound of Music references in this crazy recap. So wake up your grandma and tell her this might be the show for her. While you're waking up grandma, someone wake up Jiri Prochazka too. Why would I be in Stowe, Vermont? Well, of course, because a couple things. One, the Von Trapp family was from Austria, which is not far from where Jiri Prochazka is from, that area. And then they moved to Vermont, which is New England, where Alex Pereira is from. So I was kind of covering the main event by coming here. And and like The Sound of Music is like my wife's favorite song, favorite movie. So she'll be outside spinning in the hills all week singing. But anyways, we have a lot of things to talk about, dude. We got 13 fights, man. And we have a lot of time. We had KOs, takedowns, submission attempts, last changes, just a bunch of I'd say a few of my favorite things. That was reference number one, Ben. All right,
that was absolutely sensational.
Let's get into it. We had a rematch. We had former middleweight champion, now light heavyweight champion, Alex.
Future
Pereira,
heavyweight champion.
Could be future heavyweight champion, Alex Pereira, defending his light heavyweight championship against the guy that he won the title from in this. Jiri had the title, then gave it up with injury, and then they fought for a vacant title after Jamal Hill gave it up. Jiri Prochazka in the rematch. But I was completely sold. And it's funny, during International Fight Week, that's always the biggest card of the year. With Conor dropping out, and I said, oh man, obviously that's such a great main event. I couldn't be completely sold. And then like the last 2 days, they sold me. Between like the Black Magic, the Jiri Prochazka, what a nut job that guy is, and I love it.
I love that Prochazka is picturing Pereira just in full face paint and headdress off in the Amazon jungle somewhere, conjuring spirits, when really Pereira's at a sweaty gym in Connecticut doing rounds with Glover.
Yeah, hanging out with Glover Teixeira. They're doing spells with Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
So between the Black Magic stuff, so I've been to Alex Pereira's first fight against Izzy Adesanya in Madison Square Garden. His entrance is one of the best entrances you'll ever hear. That chant, and I'm just thinking like, if you're Jiri, what are you thinking right now after you're like, hey, I don't want any black magic, I want fairness, and all of a sudden there's like this like voodoo chant go, and then guys, I'm not bashing that culture, religion, any of that. I don't know jack shit about it. I'm not gonna pretend like I know anything about it. But Jiri,
and it's clear that Prochazka doesn't understand it either. So it's not like you're going off on some tangent here.
Yeah. I just want to make sure people. I'm not the one calling it black magic or evil or. Yeah. I just picture him in thinking of like a Game of Thrones, the guy who, the woman who killed the horse to when they chop off the horse's head to try to. That's what I picture. Jiri Prochazka thinks that Alex Pereira is hanging out with, and then that stare down. I mean, when I think about MMA stare downs, I mean it's up there. It's like Crow Cop Vanderlei. It's right there.
And Joe Rogan called it the greatest stare down in MMA history. I think that's a little bit rich considering that Vanderlei was sitting literally 60 feet away from him at the time.
Yeah.
But it's up there. Like you, I mean, you said it about the intro. There is something about Pereira, and for fans of a certain era, this is going to sound like sacrilege, but there's something Fedor-like about him where he doesn't have to do anything showy. He's not dancing his way down. Like, yeah, the music is tribal, but he's not dancing his way down like anyone from Israel Adesanya to, Kazushi Sakuraba. He's just walking out real slow with a straight face. Like the show is going on around him, but he is just the calm at the middle of the storm.
Oh,
It feels like Fedor, where just what he does feels epic, and it feels like you're witnessing a big moment, and it's without really going out of his way to be showy about it.
Him coming out reminds me of like the villain in every movie where like the henchmen all chase after the good guys, but then like the main bad guy just slowly walks. Like when Darth Vader shows up and he just slowly walks, and when someone confronts him, he's just gonna beat their ass as bad as possible. But all those like what were the little white guys running out there? What are they called?
The stormtroopers?
Yeah, the stormtroopers are running out there. They like run as fast as they can to try to get Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, but James Earl Jones just walking real slow. I don't know. I know not actual James Earl Jones, but or I mean, you could fill in all some bad guy in X-Men or bad guy in whatever. That's what it feels like to me. And I think you're right. The less he does, the more magical it is.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely agree there. Yeah, man, I don't know what else to say about, and I don't want to read too much psychology into this, because after all the kind of oddballness of Jiri Prochazka, I don't think his loss tonight was because he was like shook or got to, or any of the cliches that we throw out in the wake of big fights. Like we're always so eager to psychoanalyze, not you and I, but we as media and fans in general, we're eager to psychoanalyze fighters. And I think on some level it's interesting because it humanizes them. It makes them people that have fears and wants, and like any normal human does. And also because that's easier than breaking down the technical stuff, because you can never prove it right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like if I make an argument about like the foot position battle, I can be proven wrong. If I just say, dude looks scared, like who's to prove me right or wrong unless they say something.
Yeah, and I know I make a lot of like WWF references. I was thinking about his entrances. It reminds me of like the early Undertaker or Kane, where they would just come out and just stare, and they wouldn't stand, and they wouldn't, they would never talk, and that like mystery of him. If he was facing off against Jiri and was like mouthing off to him, some other guys would, it would lose everything. But just the death stare that, I'm going to murder you, but like I'm not going to taunt you about it. Just this is what I have to do. It's just something just cold. And I mean, we can get it technical. I've said it for a long time. There's certain guys I love doing tape study on, and Alex Pereira is in that category. And there's a lot of times I feel like I'm pretty good at technical analysis compared to a lot of people, but like I know my limits. I don't pretend to be like some all-knowing, I see things that nobody else does. There's certain guys I watch and I go, this guy's too high level for me. Like I can't see, but I get to see glimpses of what they allow. And I'm like, holy Christ, I wish I could sit down and he could show me what I'm missing. I was watching today, and it was during the replay between the first and second round, right before he knocks out Jiri Prochazka, the way he landed the hook. And I was like, the hook is so great, but why is his hook so much better than everybody's? And of course, you could just say, oh, he just has natural power, of course. But then I was saying, look at the way he angles on it. He's retreating, but he retreats off on an angle. So his opponent comes at him one way, he sidesteps to another side, and it's his hook, but he wraps it around so easily because he's off on an angle. He's not coming like all the way around your defense. He's got this little like 45-degree angle. and it's his footwork, and I was like, holy shit, dude. Like, he's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. And then I go back to that video that Jamal Hill talked about with the little sidestep he did when he moved Herb Dean off.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, and I want to be very, very delicate. A lot of it is Jamal Hill being a solo loser.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of truth to it. Like, he did set himself up at a better angle to get the knockout. You know?
He and I don't think it was a conscious thing on his part. He's in the zone. Yeah, he's reacting. It's what he does. Yeah, it's fantastic because in a very short time, his left hook has become a trademark finisher on an all-time level in MMA. Like, it normally takes a lot longer before you have the equivalent of the Crow Cop, left head kick in your arsenal. He's done it relatively quickly, and he's landing it on literally everybody he fights, win or lose. It's devastating every time it lands. Like, I don't think anyone in any of his fights has eaten more than 2 of them clean. And he doesn't have to make huge compromises in his technique to be able to land it on everyone. That's what's shocking, because with Crow Cop, 1, everybody knew it was coming. And 2, his whole game was built around it. Like, he circled to the so-called wrong side because that basically meant he was throwing his left kick onto their blind side. And while it was also circling him into their power, he just trusted himself to be faster and more defensively sound. And it worked like a charm until it didn't. Pereira isn't making any of those kinds of compromises. He's just patient, incredibly precise, and it's not telegraphed. He can throw it at a variety of angles and speeds, and even at like 70% speed, it's devastatingly heavy. It's one of the most impressive weapons in combat sports history, and I think he's getting up there to the point where I don't know where I'd rank him on MMA's all-time greatest strikers. Like, we're still talking about an extremely short career so far, and it won't go that much longer because he's already 36 going on 37.
Dude, I've been sitting on that one for a while. Nice job.
Sorry.
You beat me to it. Good though. No, you did it. Good job.
But I'll say this, and I said this because I wrote the recap for Sherdog's front page tonight. He brings a mix of power and precision that may be unprecedented in the history of the sport. Like, there may never have been somebody that can throw at least a basic repertoire of strikes with the mix of just accuracy, lack of any telegraphing, and numbing power as Alex Pereira does at any weight, any gender. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's almost an insult to say he's like throwing bombs. He's like throwing lasers.
Oh my gosh. I watched this guy. What I love about him is when you think about the best guy, you say, where does he rank in the all-time greatest strikers? I'm not saying he's number 1. I'm not saying he's on the Mount Rushmore, but he's in the club. Like he's got the special pass. He's in the President's Club, what I love about him is just the amount of, when I talk about like Alex Volkanovski when he was during his run, and every single time I see him fight, it was like he was adding more skills and more tools that we saw him, adding to his game. I always think about Justin Gaethje when he first entered the UFC to where he is now, how many more skills he's added. I feel the same thing with Alex Pereira. You're like, well, at first it was like, oh, you got to watch out for that left hook. And then it's like, oh, well, now he's got the best calf kicks in MMA. And he's like, oh, and now he's working this crisp jab to your stomach to keep you at bay. Okay, and now if you go to take him down, he's going to control your wrists. And now suddenly he might have this standing guillotine that he's really close to doing. And now he's got a freaking Mirko Crow Cup high kick.
He's got that, and he's gradually shoring up the weaknesses. We're speaking relatively here, but the clinch used to be the safest place against him on the feet. Like, even like Bruno Silva, who's a decent but not great striker, and at middleweight where Pereira towered over him, he found safe haven in the clinch for several long stretches. That is no longer true. Jiri Prochazka is giant, and he's physically strong as an ox, and the clinch was a hostile place for him tonight. I think a part of the narrative that we're going to lose just because of the brutal knockout is that in their first fight, Pereira was losing until he won. This time, he pretty much won every minute of the fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like this is supposed to be the one where Jiri Prochazka was gonna fix the holes that caused him to lose, and instead it was no. Alex Pereira is gonna fix the holes that made him lose the first round. And I do believe Alex Pereira has that John Jones in him, where it's not necessarily about winning rounds; it's about winning moments, and then those moments will ultimately win you the entire fight.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Where he doesn't, like he sits down to eat a pizza. He's not cutting into 8 slices and eating 1 slice at the top. He's picking this slice, bite him over here. He's gonna bite a piece over there. He's gonna bite the crust over there. He's gonna pull up some pepperoni over here. But then all of a sudden, next thing you know, the entire pizza's eaten.
It's like, damn it, Alex!
Damn
like,
it, Alex.
No, I can't have any of this pizza now.
Yeah, Shama.
Yeah, Shama.
Apparently means you can say good, bad, everything in between. I just love, where he we're talking about hit fixes. He goes right to the calf kicks right away. That you see Jiri, it was hurting his legs already. I'm sitting there and I go, oh my, this is worse than the first time. It's going to be even sooner. And then I see him jab into the body. I see him land a clean. He jabbed to the body, and then he did this like fake down right back up top with the right hand. So he's like, Jiri kind of drops his hands down, expecting another jab to the body. Instead, it's a right hand over the top. Then he goes with a crushing body kick. That's what set up the high kick later on. He blasted the body, right? He turned like it was going to be that kick to the body. Jiri dropped his hands and came, instead of going to the body, he went to the head. We've seen Crow Cop. I think like Gabriel Gonzaga did it at Crow Cop, where Crow Cop dropped his hands thinking it was Gonzaga was going to shoot, instead it was a high kick over the top. This guy, I mean, you talk about you're talking about power. I mean, he's got Francis Ngannou power. I mean, it's right there. He's more technical than him. He's a more technical.
I was going to say he has more power, or at least he has comparable power, which is saying something considering that Francis is probably 30 pounds heavier than he is. But he has such a wider variety of ways to get that power under your chin. And I'm saying this, and I think that Ngannou is somebody who's the technical side of his striking is often kind of overlooked and not discussed enough. But there's no comparison. Like Ngannou has monstrous power and 2 or 3 basic ways to get it, to transfer that power to his opponent's chin. Pereira has the full arsenal. Like the left hook is his usual finisher, but I think that's because it just lands. Like if he misses with the left hook, he has more things coming. Just the left hook lands. It's like there's no point in continuing to punch him unless Herb Dean is 5 seconds late getting to the scene of the crime, like he was tonight.
Yeah, what I love about Alex Pereira, and again, I'm not calling him the greatest striker in MMA history because of the lack of longevity. But I mean, every fight that goes on, he's not jumping guys. He's teleporting up the rankings. When we think about some of the greatest strikers of all time, I think of obviously Izzy. I think of Jose Aldo. I think of Francis Ngannou. I think of Mirko Cro Cop. They all have their like specialties, and it's like Alex can take a piece from each of these guys. He's got the Mirko high kick. He's got the Jose Aldo leg kicks. He's got the Francis power. He's got, he's not as technical as he, but he's very technical. He moves like Anderson, like he can cut and cut angles like Anderson. That's what I like. That's what makes this guy so dangerous. And now you're telling me that you get to the clinch and he's not getting taken down. Instead, he's controlling hands and he's draping his body over his opponent, so they're kind of holding onto his weight. And he stopped the takedown from Jiri, who was able to take him down before. And then when you look at the division, who's the wrestler in the division? Ankalaev?
Ankalaev is the only wrestler.
And then who?
I mean, after that, you're getting down to people that have decent wrestling, like Krylov, but
he's not
are going to be so overmatched in other ways. And as our homie Dev, host of the Check the Kick podcast, mentions, outside of the very top couple of fighters, light heavyweight is a super low fight IQ division. So even like below about the top 5, even if someone has good wrestling, I just don't trust them to apply it necessarily. Like it's just it's the division of head scratching tactical decisions, even within the top 15. Like there's not, it's the same as middleweight. Honestly, it's not that anyone's shielding Pereira from anything. There's just not that much to shield him from. Ankalaev is it.
Yeah. And if he gets by Ankalaev, who beats him? I mean, I think just Father Time beats him. Like eventually he gets caught by somebody, but it's more of a time thing than anything. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching Yuri, and usually Yuri is like, he's the wild man. He's spinning around like Julie Andrews in the hills in the beginning of the movies, you know. But instead, he's standing in front of Alex Pereira, and I'm saying, what is his strategy? And I'm thinking he's like, okay, I don't want to get caught coming in. I don't want to be reckless, but I do want to close the distance. It's the only thing I think of. I want to close the distance, but I got to do it at the right time, at the right opportunities. But Pereira was staying away from the cage, circling, really didn't give him a chance. And I felt like, yeah, you don't want to do that spinning stuff and get caught, but sometimes you got to do what got you there. Like what they say, like you danced with a girl you took to the prom.
Yeah.
And like having a distant kickboxing fight, like technical kickboxing with Alex Pereira, like that's not a good idea.
You know what? I completely agree. And I'm going to make a really old school comparison here. Like if you're too young, this doesn't make any sense to you at all. Like feel free to tune out. But
I'm talking about the Sound of Music, dude. I don't think you're gonna go much further than that. Well, you did do some Scorpion in the Toad frog.
Yeah, which I mean that's like thousands of years old.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm thinking back to the first Chuck Liddell Tito Ortiz fight, where I mean they were former training partners, so they kind of knew how the fight was going to go. But Tito came out and he tried to wrestle Chuck, and Chuck was the prototype sprawl and brawler at the time. He knew he couldn't get him down. At that point, Tito bit down on the mouthpiece and started swinging away because I think he realized I'm not going to win a Tito Ortiz fight against this guy. I'm going to at least give myself every chance to win. And my best chance to win here is that I happen to clip the guy with something. You know, I mean, Chuck, even at the very top of his game, was hittable. It didn't work. He got knocked out. He went out on his shield. But you know what? That was better than just kind of sitting on the outside and acquiescing to getting just pieced up at range by Liddell for 3 rounds. Here, Prochazka, on some level, I think his best chance of winning here was to just land something wild on Pereira, because Prochazka is an absolutely monstrous hitter. Pereira's been zapped by, I mean, Pereira got floored by Israel Adesanya, who does not hit anywhere as near as hard as Prochazka does. Like, no. Maybe it's a 10% chance, but if Prochazka just goes wild and in his case stays with the girl that brought him to the dance, but that would have been his best chance of winning this fight. Instead, as Dev has pointed out in the chat, and he pointed out in the Sherdog Slack, this is the first time we've ever seen Jiri Prochazka stall and like wait and sit around. Like he's normally the most aggro guy in an extremely aggro division. And all it meant was he lost the first round, even before the point where things really started to go downhill. Yeah, it wasn't a great outing by Prochazka.
Yeah, and most likely, if Yuri fought like he normally does, this wild thing, the guy who fought Dominic Reyes goes crazy, like the Korean Zombie did against Max Holloway. It probably ends the way the Korean Zombie ended against Max Holloway. He's knocked out cold, but at least he gave himself a chance. But standing from distance, I think that was a terrible thing. Let me ask you a question. So we're talking about International Fight Week. We haven't even mentioned Conor. I mean, Conor was the guy. He was the man, the biggest fight of the year, the biggest guy of the year. Conor, do it. I said nothing could feel like a replacement. Like everything could come up short. And then when you have results like this, and yes, of course, you did have a portion of people who didn't watch because Conor's not on it. But of those who watched, how many people are disappointed? Of those who went to the event, if you bought tickets, are you disappointed? I mean, I guess if you're really big, you're a Prochazka fan, I guess. But like, if you're like me and you, like I know we don't necessarily root for fighters. I always root for the funnest thing to talk about. Is there anything more fun to talk about right now than Alex Pereira?
No, the top 3 fights on this card were the result of reshuffling. And while Smith versus Dolidze wasn't riveting, the other 2 were hella entertaining.
We'll get the co-main event in a second, which is nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but generally speaking, considering how much the UFC had to scramble here, things couldn't have gone much better than they did.
And I think what happens is you want your biggest star fighting on International Fight Week. It's kind of been the way of the UFC for a really long time. It doesn't always fall that way, but generally that's what they want to do. You have a guy that has now headlined he's headlined 2 New York City cards back to back. He's headlined UFC 300. Now just headlined International Fight Week. He's won belts in 2 different weight classes. I said you want your biggest star fighting on International Fight Week of people currently fighting. So I'm leaving Conor out because he's so inactive. Like, how long is he? We got to count him as the face of MMA. How long are we going to say?
The UFC's biggest stars did fight tonight.
That's what I was going to ask. Is he the biggest star in the UFC? If not, who's bigger?
He's definitely the biggest one that was available. And there I'm not even talking about Conor and John. I'm saying, okay, Max and Justin just fought recently. Like the biggest star that is an active fighter fought tonight, and it's Alex Pereira. Charles Oliveira, Marcus Mustard points out, Charles Oliveira, has become a big star.
You gotta at least be the champ to be the biggest star.
Yeah. Well, I put him in the same conversation as like, Max, Justin, Dustin, like those guys.
Yeah. Like I don't even know if he's the biggest star in the division. Never mind the UFC. Yeah, I guess you could still make the arguments for like a John Jones over him, but they're not fighting. I'm thinking about guys who fight. I'm thinking about Leon Edwards. I'm thinking about Islam Makhachev. I'm thinking about Ilia Topuria, and go through the champions in all the division. I can't think of anybody who's a bigger star right now than Alex Pereira. And what I love about this is this guy is like the true fighter. He's willing to fight anybody, anytime. Like, tell me this right now. If Curtis Blades gets hurt, breaks his hand in training, so whatever the reason, you tell me that Alex Pereira wouldn't volunteer to fight Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight title next month?
We're going to get to matchmaking next, but one of us isn't going to wait for someone to get injured.
You're bumping them. Now you got me really excited. All right, let's get ready. All right, let's do this before. Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan's very good at putting his opinion, and because it's Joe Rogan, you're talking about the voice of MMA between him and 1 or 2 other people out there, but it's like him, and when I say 1 or 2, I meant like Shillan and Duffy, obviously, but when he puts ideas out there, they just stick. It becomes narrative because the loudest mouth kind of thing. His thing is Pereira to heavyweight. He asked the question as in a way of like making you do something. The way we do matchmaking here, we don't get into like what really happens in the UFC, where you got to talk to managers and you have to find who's lined up and who doesn't want to fight who. And we do it that we're the ultimate supreme being dictators. No one can say no, to make it easy. Are you making Alex Pereira fight at heavyweight next?
I am inviting him to fight at heavyweight next. I'm giving him the incentive, saying, you are, depending on what's out there, either going to be slotted into an immediate title fight or an immediate, definite, like agreed title eliminator. We're going to renegotiate your contract. And I just think they should give him the chance to climb every mountain.
I also think there's nobody at light heavyweight that is interesting. Like, say what you want. There's a reason why. I know there was a lot of personal reasons with Magomed Ankalaev. I know there was Ramadan and a bunch of other stuff going on, but there's also people they'd be pushing. Ankalaev's the guy they call up for a title shot, and he says, "Oh, I have my my niece's high school."
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, cool. Never mind.
High school graduation.
Halfway through the sentence.
Yeah. They're like, and he's like, oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah, that's cool. And they're like, oh no, I realized that's next weekend. Nah, you know what? It's so close. Just family first. And they hang up. What is Alex Pereira benefit by fighting Magomed Ankalaev? To me, it's all risk, no reward. Because only the hardcores know how good Ankalaev is.
Right.
He doesn't sell. You beat him, you knock him out, it's going to be, that guy was never that good. Who'd he beat? He only beat Johnny Walker. You know what I mean? He couldn't even win the title. He got snubbed by Paul Craig.
Think how different the picture would be right now if he and Jan Blachowicz had not fought to a draw. Like if he'd gotten even just a split decision in that fight, then he's the sitting champ. Yeah, which he should have. He should have been the champ after that fight. Then he's the sitting champ when Pereira is doing his thing at middleweight, considering moving up to light heavyweight. I don't know who I would have picked to win because I haven't done the heavy tape study for that yet, but the whole conversation is definitely different. But if Pereira wins the title by fighting off Ankalaev's takedowns and then starching him, like, what's left for him in that entire division? Like, I think that's what we would have been like asking ourselves.
Yeah, that's my point. So, like, if he beats Ankalaev, he's moving up anyways. So, but why not just go now? Because if you lose, you can always go right back down and defend your title. You can always do that. Like, the Ankalaev fight will be there. I mean,
yeah.
If Aspinall beats Blades in England, you know how it is. The way you build a star is you always put them in the front of their hometown crowd. They get that biggest pop. They get that moment. You know, Aspinall gets that big moment. Title, the crowd going crazy. He says something, you make him an even bigger star. Obviously, John Jones, what it is. Let me ask you, I would do that. I would move him up. I'd say, Aspinall, I know you're the guy. Stipe, I know there's some kind of thing going on with you, whatever. Like, sorry, dude, you got to be more active. Nobody wants that fight. Nobody thinks that John Jones beating Stipe is like a big deal anymore. This, 4 years ago would have been a big deal. Not anymore. I know I live in the moment, guys. I know I live in the moment. It's a flaw of mine. But and I don't mean this in the sense of pay-per-view buys, but just in the sense of competitiveness, in marketability, of everything together. Because, I mean, the Conor Khabib is the biggest fight ever, but I think most people knew how that fight was going to go. If you could book John Jones versus Alex Pereira next, so I don't know what John Jones' turnaround, but say January. Is there a bigger fight? Two-part. Is there a bigger fight in MMA right now than John Jones versus Alex Pereira?
I mean, bigger in terms of box office, like Conor fighting still trumps anything for the moment. But in terms of combination of box office potential, legitimate competitive importance, no, there's nothing even close.
I think it could be the biggest fight of MMA history. I think it could be that big because you have John Jones, who's a top 5 star ever, the greatest fighter ever. You could have that whole GOAT thing never been. Who's the one guy? Like, you want to ask Dana White, he always says, recently he's been going on this tour where he's talking about John Jones and he says, stick everybody in a room. Who's coming out? And it's always John Jones. If I was at the media there, I'd ask him, hey Dana, you stick John Jones and Alex Pereira in a room, who's coming out? There'd at least be a pause, no?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to see. Let's lock these two guys in a room and see who comes out. I'm not calling for these guys to fight for death, but let me ask you this. Does John accept that fight?
Here's the thing, and the comment section is blowing up with this.
We're ignoring the comments. I apologize.
I've been going back and forth a few times, putting a few up on the screen, but I like if you say that John Jones is scared of anything, like the conversation's over.
Yeah.
If you want to make the argument that at this point in his career, like at his age and kind of where he's at competitively, he is deciding which risks are, worth it and which ones are not. I'm on board with that. That's a whole world different than being scared of anything. Like, if you've ever met John Jones, if you've ever spoken to him, hell, if you've ever listened to a few of his interviews, he has the level of self-belief that pretty much every world-class athlete does. Like, John Jones legitimately thinks he can whoop any guy in the world.
Because he can.
Because at least on the right night, he can.
Yeah. I mean, there might be 2 people in the world that could maybe make an argument against that.
But if he goes, okay, realistically, I have 3 more fights in me, And if I win the first one, I'm probably going to get 20 million out of those 3 fights. And if I lose the first one, I'm probably going to get 10 million out of them. Then it's like, okay, I believe in myself, but do I want to bet $10 million in a sport as chaotic and unpredictable as MMA?
Yeah, that's the perfect. And I think about it is, if John Jones beats Tom Aspinall, you don't think so. Oh, who'd he beat? Oh, he didn't beat anybody. Oh, he beat Sergey Pavlovich, and that wasn't even that good of a win. Look what Pavlovich just lost to Volkov, and we always pump up these guys. He looks at it as, you can say I beat an old Stipe, but I'm still gonna have Stipe's name on my list forever. Like he goes through his list, and you can nitpick his list now with some guys. Oh, well, you fought an undersized Rashad Evans. You fought like end of his career Rampage. Like, you can do that. You can do it with everybody. Like, you can nitpick everybody's resume, but he's still gonna have that name. Like, that's one of the big names during his generation he doesn't have on his list.
Sure.
So I think that's how he looks at it. And of course, it's like the biggest name with the least risk. So if I'm John Jones, I'm pushing for that too.
Yeah. Like there's a world of difference between being afraid and like being realistic and managing risk. Like, if you're John Jones, yes, you're concerned about your legacy, but you're also concerned about racking up as much money as you can before you're out of this sport. MMA does not have a retirement plan. It does not have 401k. He's very comfortable right now, but who knows what he's got coming up in the next few years. So yeah, he has 2 or 3 years to rack up as much money as he can. His next fight is going to be a massive turning point for his earning power for whatever the rest of it is. Like, hell, if he starts as Stipe and he like decides I have one more fight left, I don't think I think he'd take on Ngannou. I think he'd take on Aspinall. I think, because at that point, who gives a damn?
Oh my God. Yeah, when you start throwing out Francis Ngannou, like, geez, could you imagine what the heavyweight division would be right now if you still had Francis Ngannou and you had John Jones competing and you had Stipe who wanted to compete, and then you added Alex Pereira moving out, Tom Aspinall? Like, oh my God, it'd be the greatest heavyweight division has ever been. Like, it would top the peak of Pride's heavyweight division when you had Fedor and Krokop and Nogueira and Barnett and all those guys, Igor and Coleman. And if you had those guys who are all heavyweights right now but are not fighting each other somehow, and obviously Alex Pereira's not a heavyweight, but he's interested.
Yeah.
Oh my! Like, this is the world. Like, this is what we could have, and instead they're not fighting each other. Okay. If he stays at light heavyweight, it's got to be Ankalaev, right? There's no other fight, right?
There's no other fight. The UFC. I mean, Ankalaev is in the Bilal Muhammad Rob Dvalishvili boat, where he doesn't have much personality. His fights can often be agonizingly slow to watch, but he's going to keep beating everybody until he gets his shot. So my philosophy is just get it out of the way. Because here's the thing. If he loses, then you can stick him to the back of the line. And if you're a real dick, you can cut him the next time he loses a fight. You can do the Yushin Okami, John Fitch thing to him.
Yeah.
And be like, and I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying Matt Lindland, if like, just eat your vegetables, UFC. Eating your vegetables in this case is giving the big guy with the Dagestani foreguard his shot.
And I could see Pereira, he'll never say it. Like, he always say, like, I fight whoever they want me to fight. I could see Pereira wanting that fight because people think it's a best solid-state matchup for him. Like, he thinks different. Like, there's certain people, like, we think as normal human beings one way, like, shit, I'm avoiding that fight if I'm him. That's not how these guys think. No. They think the opposite. Like, wait a minute, there's somebody somewhere thinking this guy can beat me, or this guy's a bad matchup for me. That's who I want.
And here's the thing. I say this on our previews a lot. There are 2 basic models of the Dagestani fighter. There's the kickboxer who can wrestle, and there's the wrestler who may or may not be able to kickbox. Ankalaev is a good wrestler, but left to his own devices, he would prefer to have a slow-paced kickboxing match from the outside, which he wins without really getting a finger laid on him.
Yeah.
He cannot win that fight against Alex Pereira.
Yeah,
he is not going to.
There's wrestling either. Like, let's not go crazy.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. It's not.
Yeah, he out wrestled Paul Craig, like,
Mhm.
and then got stopped.
Yeah, and out wrestling Paul Craig. I mean, that's part of Paul Craig's game plan is getting out wrestled. He's like, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm just going to hang out and try to triangle you in 15 minutes.
Yuri's a little harder to matchmake. No, obviously the guy's fun. You know, you don't want him to take up too many of the top guys because he's fought the champion twice. So, what would you do with him?
Well, he's fought the champion twice, but he's fought almost nobody else because he, believe it or not, has fewer fights in the UFC than Pereira does. Like, we think Pereira hit the UFC like a bolt of lightning and did all these things, but that was Pereira's like 8th or 9th UFC fight, and it was Prochazka's 7th. The problem is he's going to have to take a step way down because most of the other guys in the top 10 are already tied up. Like, presumably they'll remake Khalil Roundtree and Jamal Hill. At this point, maybe you give him someone like, you ask Ige, do you want to stick at 205? If not, you let him whoop up on the ghost of Anthony Smith. You give him Alonzo Menafield. You give him.
So I see a lot of people putting Hill out there, being, you know, they both were the champions at one time and who was the real champion and all that. The problem is if Pereira beats Ankalaev and he stays at light heavyweight, you're running out of contenders, and now you just had, you know, say Yuri wins.
Yeah.
You had, you know, contend like Hill get knocked out, like Hill can't get the rematch, or say he takes on Khalil Roundtree, or these other guys that Pereira hasn't faced. So I'm going to show you guys why I'm the best matchmaker in the business. And did you listen to I know you don't like to listen to the broadcast, but on the broadcast, they said Yuri is so light that he said he can make middleweight. Well, if you lost the champion twice, go down to middleweight, my man.
I'm surprised to hear that, just because he looked bigger and heavier than Pereira in the cage tonight. Like, roughly the same height, roughly the same wingspan, but he looked more heavily muscled. If he says it, I believe him, because he seems to be a fairly straight shooter, despite being kind of a weirdo. Mm-hmm. If he thinks he can, I'm down for him giving it a shot. It's not like he has no future at light heavyweight. He's lost twice to the champ. The champ might be leaving the division. And aside from that, we're talking about, okay, who in the top 10 hasn't he fought yet? So this isn't a desperation move, but if he wants to try it just to shake things up, I mean, he came to the UFC from Ryzen, where it was basically an open weight division. I mean, the guy got flatlined by King Mo. Yeah. He fought like Vadim Nemkov at heavyweight. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That means we could get him versus Michel Pereira at 185. Yeah. Like, just battle of the spinning stuff, like two Beyblades, just like conk, 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 conk against each other. Yeah.
So you have Izzy and Duplessis fighting for the title, with Strickland likely be fighting the winner. Robert Whittaker doesn't have a dance partner. Give me Yuri versus Robert Whittaker on the main card of pay-per-view, third from the top.
I want that.
That's one of the best guys.
Just to see how bizarre it will look when Robert Whittaker schools a guy that's like basically twice his size.
Yeah,
like that's my off the cuff call, but I want to see it.
Absolutely. A former heavyweight fight in a former welterweight.
And if that happens, if he doesn't have anything for Whittaker, then maybe he realizes that his best future isn't at 185. He says so long, farewell to that division, and moves back up to 205.
Dude,
and there's still plenty to go for him.
I went through my notes with all my favorite friggin' references, and you keep beating me to so the craziest thing of the night was not a high kick knockout. Which, by the way, we completely buried that. Yuri got saved by the bell at the end of the first. He was out there too, I believe.
Yeah.
But probably the craziest thing in history since the Von Trapp family snuck out of the talent show and ran away from the Nazis while they were at the talent show. Brian Ortega was supposed to fight the co-main event against Diego Lopes, and I still can't believe this freaking happened. While I'm watching the prelims, they announced, and I saw the tweet from Errol Hawani and everything. Dan Ige replaces Brian Ortega, who supposedly had 100. I don't want to say supposedly. I'm not saying he's lying, but the report was that he had 103 fever. Dan Ige, gets in touch with someone from the UFC and takes the fight like 4 hours ahead. Comes in, gets weighed in at 165 and fights Diego Lopes.
Lopes, after weighing in on Friday, has to go weigh in again Saturday night. Weighs in at 161 for the 165-pound catch weight match.
Do people realize how crazy this is? Like, compare this to another sport. Imagine, the Celtics are playing the Mavs in the NBA Finals, and like they come to take the court, and suddenly like, what the hell? The Lakers are here, and now the Celtics are playing the Lakers.
It's unprecedented. And I mean, it's unprecedented in UFC history. There have been a few fight day shakeups, obviously, but this is the first time I can remember that somebody who was not scheduled to be on the card at all came in on the day of the event.
Yeah, we had the Taffa brothers, but that was the day before.
Yeah, the Taffa brothers switched places the day before.
Obviously,
UFC 279 got shuffled because Hamzat blew weight. It all, like, the top 3 fights got shuffled the day before, but all the moving parts there were already on the card. Nobody was just like literally getting off a massage table.
I think about the James Krause situation when he came,
where he fought Trevin Giles,
but that was like a 1 day's notice. But I mean, the event was going on. And this was announced. It was crazy. Like he lives in Vegas. Let's just go through the situation. So you have Dan Ige. He's freaking at home. Suppose he was getting massage, maybe watching the fights. Who knows? And he gets a rumor that Brian Ortega's out, and goes, "Fuck, I don't live that far from the arena. I'll fight him."
Texted Hunter Campbell.
Right? And they make it happen. How about Lopes? Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he's not fighting on this card. He gets invited to fight on International Fight Week and the co-main event against Brian Ortega on 2 weeks' notice. So you're talking about top 5 guy, top 3 or 4 guy, whatever he is, on 2 weeks' notice. You jump at that opportunity. Supposedly, early Friday morning, the day of the weigh-ins, he was on weight at 145. Gets a call at like 4:30 in the morning saying, "Hey, Ortega's not going to make it. We're going to bump the fight to 155. Doesn't put up a stink. Just cut down, like, who knows how much. And it, goes, okay, let's fight there too. Then, oh yeah, Ortega can't fight. Here comes Dan Ige. Oh, and you got to move up to 165, and you got to weigh in again right now. And he still says, "Yeah, okay."
You know what?
I love this fucking dude.
When you rock a mullet like that, there's a certain baseline expectation of manliness about you. Manliness or womanliness. Like Amanda Nunes used to have a mullet, but like you have to have a certain fortitude and badassness. He earned that mullet. So, good on him. I may need to rewrite my top 5 mullets in MMA article for next week.
So before the fight even happened, I wrote a note. Like, I kind of have like little spaces where I write my notes for each, what I want to talk about, kind of bullet points. And the one thing I wrote in the space for Ige and Lopes before the fight even happened was given a pass no matter what. So based on either guy's performance, I'm giving a pass, because the whole weight thing with Lopes, and he gets a new opponent. Ige, coming up from the massage parlor. He's supposed to be relaxing tonight, getting a massage instead. He's fighting. So I was going to give what happened in the cage a pass no matter what. Lopes looked great the first 2 rounds. Like, I expected him. He was fast. He was landing combinations. He was powerful. He was bigger. I was so impressed with like how much of an advantage he had on the ground. I was just like, star going up, no matter what he does, I don't care. His toughness will never be challenged. This was like a BMF type situation. Star grows. He was better than Ige, but he should be.
Should be. Ige, I mean, and I love Ige. He's the guy that I've interviewed a million times. I mean, I like him a lot, but he is a sometimes fringe contender and reliable action fighter. He's a featherweight Donald Cerrone type.
The peak of him is 15th. Being the top 15 guy is peak for him.
Yeah. So Lopez, if he really is a future title contender, should be better than Ige everywhere, especially Ige, who literally got off his couch today.
So he ran out of gas in the third and lost the third round, which was I was so impressed with Ige to come off the couch and do that. That said, do you look at it moving forward as, well, Lopez might have an issue if the fight goes deeper, or you look at it like me, where I'm saying this dude cut weight twice. Had to weigh. He weighed in 3 times. He weighed in one. He took. First of all, we keep ignoring that he took the fight on short notice too. We had 2 weeks, which already you kind of give him a pass for that. What his cardio was going to be, but then add in this guy weighed in 3 times in 30 hours or something, 36 hours. Do the math.
I'll say this much. I am inclined to give him a pass on some of the things that turned out as problematic tonight. Like the gassing out, he gets a total pass because he's fighting Dan Ige at literally Ige's walking weight. There's no way Ige made any sort of cut. And again, I've talked to Dan Ige a lot, and I specifically talked to him about possibly cutting to 135. And Ige got to fight at his walking weight tonight.
Unless he's got a sauna in his car and is right there, then
he just turned the heat way up. Well, he lives in Vegas. He doesn't need to turn the heat up.
Doing sit-ups in the car that someone else is driving.
Exactly, just with trash bags on your. Oh man, I hated that.
Maybe anyway, maybe he didn't take a car. Maybe he ran from his house.
Anyway, but it's something that remains a question mark because on top of everything else at 145, and 145 is one of the highest skilled divisions in the sport. The top of the division is full of people that put on a ton of pressure and often fight at a furious pace. Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, Alex Volkanovski, Jair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega. So it remains a question mark. That's something that Lopez still needs to prove about himself before I'm willing to believe he's a top 5 fighter. He also has a few bad habits on the feet. I agree. He was outstriking Ige. His leg kicks were on point. Those have been a good weapon for him in all of his fights. But Ige was catching them clean on some of those exchanges where they both bounced into range around the same time. And in a way that Topuria or Rodriguez would have just absolutely put his chin through the ceiling. So I don't know if those are just things that happened because he's fighting a guy that he had no preparation for, or they're actual habits that need to be addressed going forward. I wouldn't say this raised any new question marks, but it also didn't answer as many as a fight against Ortega would have.
What I would do if I was the UFC, though, I feel, obviously I'm assuming they got a lot of money. I couldn't imagine what kind of money there was. You know what? No one Ige probably did it for his regular pay because he's such a badass. He wanted an extra pair of the jackets they give him or something like that, or can my wife come to the match too?
I want to be in the video game. Yeah.
But I would give them their next fight, whatever they want. As crazy as the situation was, and I always say, I want to always talk about the most exciting thing to talk about, and talking about a guy. I mean, it really felt like a WWF moment. Oh, the Macho Man's not here. Oh no, who's Ric Flair going to fight? Holy shit, it's Hulk Hogan! That's what it felt like. But instead of the biggest
star, God, that's Dan Ige's music.
Yeah. But instead of the biggest star, it's Dan Ige, right? Oh, it's Go Beware. Okay. But anyways,
and he doesn't even have his bird because
I still feel the fight that we were going to get. I'm still disappointed we didn't get Brian Ortega. Now, I was already concerned with the moving out to 155, and this guy cut down to 145. And so, I didn't feel like it was fair to Lopez, but I still feel like we got a little ripped off because, let's be honest, if they announced International Fight Week, the common event was Diego Lopes with Dan Ige, we'd all be like, what the fuck? Right?
Yeah.
So I feel a little ripped off like that. But if I'm the UFC and I'm like, dude, you want a big star? You are a star. You deserve it. What you did for us. You wanted Brian Ortega because you want to rise to the top. But guess what, dude? I'm going higher than Ortega now. You showed up. He didn't. You passed that test. You said you want to fight in the Spear. I'm giving you the Spear. You want to fight someone higher? I'm doing Lopez versus Alex Volkanovski.
Oh wow.
In the Spear, co-main event.
I mean, I love the matchup. Like, and Volkanovski is not currently booked for anything, including the Spear, right? Because my impression was that the UFC was going to try to load up the Spear event with like Mexican fighters, which just made me think, well, get either Rodriguez or rebook the Ortega fight for then. But again, I don't know if I would favor Lopez to beat Volkanovski. I don't know if I think Lopez is a future title contender, but I do think he's earned the right to call his own shot within reason going forward. So if he says, I want a big name and I want to fight on a big card, and that's what the UFC comes back to him with, I'm 100% for it.
Yeah, the other guy I'd have it back up. The guy he lost to. He wants to fight Evloev too. Okay, you've been wanting that rematch. There you go.
The first fight was close, man. I mean, I'd love to see it even just as a fight.
And then Ige, like I thought about guys, like I'd put him in the Spear, and I thought about guys that fit that range, and I'm like, Sean Woodson or something like that. But then I'm like, you know what? Like, get this guy a win. I'll put you in the Spirit, and I'll give you the worst fucking guy in the roster. Like, you deserve that. Like, who do you think I'm gonna cream this guy and knock him into next week? That's what I'm booking. I might book some freaking Combat. You know what I do? I bring a guy from Combate America, Combate Global. I forgot the name. Because they bring 800,000 viewers or something like that. But
people that forgot to change the channel after the telenovelas on Saturday. Yeah.
But I would give it a like he wants to be in the Spear. The Spear's done.
Yeah. I mean, hell, be like, hey, Weston Wilson, congratulations on the win. We're going to get you with a bigger name. How'd you like to fight Dan Ige in the Spear?
Dan Ige in the Spear.
Ige versus Andre Fili too. Shoot. I mean,
all right, we got to move on. We're already an hour in, and we still have 11 more fights plus the fun stuff to get to. Third from the top was another fight that got thrown in short notice. Anthony Smith taking on middleweight Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze pulling. Well, I almost said the upset, but he actually ended up being the favorite. But he in the rankings an upset, I guess, winning a unanimous decision. I looked at many decisions. It was 12-3 for Dolidze. You scored it for Anthony Smith.
I did score it for Anthony Smith, and here's the thing. I stand by the score. I thought Smith narrowly won the first and third rounds, while I thought he lost the second pretty badly, but not quite 10-8 badly. So according to the current scoring criteria, Anthony Smith won 29-28. I don't feel like I scored it for the better fighter. Like all your cliches, like in the streets or, look at his face, look at mine, like all of those, like Dolidze was the better fighter tonight. So yeah, I stand by it, but I'm not super happy about it.
So I thought I scored it for Dolidze, but I don't think Smith looked good. Let me ask you this. I like to do this question a lot. Did Smith look bad or did Dolidze look good?
Smith looked bad. Smith looked bad. Dolidze looked okay. That's about it. And here's the thing. Dolidze was 2-0 at light heavyweight when he decided to move down to 185. Like, we already knew he was at least competitive at 205. He looked fine, like not off the charts great, and I think it was Dev that pointed this out in the chat during fight night, but don't you feel like in every single one of his fights these days, win or lose, Anthony Smith ends up crumpled in the corner of the cage and the floor, just getting pounded on by somebody who's not even on him with hooks in? It's just like standing over him with one hand on him and just punching him with the other hand. It looks like child abuse.
He looks like a kid. He looks like a kid who like a toddler who joined the soccer team who was like hiding in the net and his parents hanging over him trying to pull him out of the net. Yeah, like to go out to go play with the rest of the kids. I've said this before. I said when he beat Petrino, I thought he should have hung him up. I think Anthony Smith has so much better stuff going on outside the cage, especially like I think he's a really good color combination. He's got his podcast. He's got so many other. He's a personality in the MMA world. But as a fighter, I was, and it wasn't Dolidze like I was super confident Dolidze, but I just think Anthony Smith is. I thought he was shot. I thought he was shot heading into the Pacino fight. I think he got lucky catching a guillotine. I see a guy that's slow. His output has gone down. His He's never had power in the division.
Mm-mm.
His cardio has completely faded. He was never like this great technical striker. He was never this like great grappler. He was never this great wrestler. Like he doesn't do anything. I mean, he'll say it himself. He's a minors athlete. Well, those guys have to win in volume. They got to find the intangibles. He doesn't have the intangibles anymore.
Nope. I mean, the one intangible that he still has is just the ridiculous. I'm not even going to say will to win, but just will not to quit. Like Lionheart still works as a nickname, but where the spirit is willing, the flesh indeed is weak. He can't do it anymore, and so he ends up too tough for his own good. Again, just crumpled in a ball at the base of the fence with a bigger guy punching him in the head. I am 100% on board with you. My next matchup for Anthony Smith is Michael Chiesa with a pair of mics in their hands.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like give him like a contender series gig. Like I feel like if you gave him, hey, we'll let you call the contender series, I feel like he would go straight Larasenko where he learns everything about these guys. That's his job, and he would be the fucking guy when it comes to that.
Completely on board with that. Yeah.
So just that's the best way to use him. Dolidze, you mentioned he used to fight a light heavyweight. He's had success in both weight classes. I like the idea of him fighting in both. Like he's not making a run into either one. So
no,
stay in the fight in both, figure out which one's the best avenue for victory for you, and then eventually make the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I like him at 185. Like he is, I mean, he's just a real basic fighter. Like that's the thing. Like there's no like for a guy that comes from a fairly high level grappling background, he's super bread and butter everywhere. His striking is ultra basic. It's effective just because he hits super hard. His ground game, I mean, I say basic, but then he caught Jack Hermanson in a calf slicer and punched him out from back mount. One of the like most exotic looking finishes on the ground in 10 years in the UFC. But that was like one freaky thing. Mostly he's just throwing people around like, uh 185-pound Alexander Romanov and then beating the piss out of him. Like let him hang around at 185, win 2, lose 1, pick up a few bonuses. When the wheels fall off, he can go, take his baby on walks in the park with Cheyenne Blismus. He's still winning at life.
Yeah, I was thinking about like what would I do with him matchmaking wise. If he wants to stay at light heavy, I give him Alexander Rakic. I mean, he beat a top 10 guy, so even though I don't think he's like a top 10 talent, he's got to face someone in that area. Rakic is on a 2-fight losing streak. He called for a fight with Chimaev in middleweight, and I'm okay with it.
They did?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And the reason I'll tell you
I
why.
thought he called for Paul Craig.
No, Joe Pyfer did.
Oh, right. Pyfer called for Craig.
Like it was actually a brilliant call out. Like, let me get a big name that's the least risk possible, and even if I lose, I don't get really hurt. That was a really. I mean, I think he would absolutely starch Paul Craig. But we'll get to that in a second. I like the idea of Chimaev because to me, Chimaev is such a risk of a fight even happening. I mean, I don't know where's his position, but say he wants to continue fighting and he does. I don't want to waste my time booking Chimaev against a guy like Rob Whittaker, someone that I really have plans for, and then waste all this time with him. But like Dolidze, I'm okay. Like, okay, all right. Well, it sucks to be Dolidze that a fight falls apart. That's how I feel with him.
That works for me, man.
As far as Smith, if he really wants to continue fighting, which I'm sure he will, give him. I would put him against Bogdan Guskov just to have the lookalike fight. Anybody else? Why not? Why not fight your doppelganger?
Yeah, like Guskov just looks like somebody put Smith into Photoshop and widened him by 20%, but like just left him the same otherwise. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Before that, Myra Bueno Silva took on Macy Chiasson. Macy Chiasson winning by second round TKO. Damn, this was a freaking nasty ass cut. What was up?
Yeah, well, I mean, Macy Chiasson answered the question. How do you solve a problem like Myra? You take her down, set up in her guard, hit her with one big elbow that just splits her head wide open. Comparing it to the bad cut Justin Gonzalez in PFL Friday night. It was asked in the Sherdog Slack, like, which was the worst one. I think the Silva cut was worse because it happened like right above the brow where the actual flesh is a little thicker. It bled more. It was
the camera
it
guys
was
did a better
bad.
job. The camera guys did a better job of showing it. Not that it mentioned that Bueno Silva like jumped over the cage and would like put her face in front of everybody so to see. I want to say this: my biggest disappointment is I was driving from Rhode Island to Vermont today, listening to Sound of Music songs to get references for tonight and placing them in certain spots. And fucking Ben keeps beating me to every single one. Damn it, dude. That was your best one yet. No one. I don't think anybody else caught it, but I caught that. What do you do with Maria? That was fucking fantastic.
Well, I mean, in between like writing the recap and scoring round by round, apparently I must have done something good.
Yeah, nice job. nice job. So Bueno Silva, to her credit, she came out like she looked good at first. She was pressing the action, forcing Shillan to back foot, but then Shillan made the adjustment, got the takedown, and she did what we could say she does. She has those long limbs where she can be a bully, and she finally bullied. And all she did was needed one elbow from top. And I thought Bueno Silva made a huge mistake when she had an armbar. I don't know how deep it was. It probably wasn't that deep, but I mean, I know it's not fair. Like we're looking at her cut, she doesn't know. But that was her chance. Like she needed to get that armbar and finish the fight right then, because as soon as the action was going to get stopped, the fight was over.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have any disagreement with the stoppage, do you?
No, it was an absolute. What I have a disagreement is why the doctor was passing the buck. Like, what the hell's the matter with him? Like he was pussying. Like he was like,
yeah,
oh, the cut looks nasty. It looks deep, and it's like, and I'm not a big fan of Chris Dione, but Chris Dione's like, so do you want it stopped? And he's like, well, it's really deep. And so should it be stopped? And he's like, well, that's really up to you. And he's like, well, you're the doctor. You tell me. Like, I'm not a doctor. Like, and he's like, oh, it's really deep. It's like, dude, just fucking say it. He didn't want to get booed from the audience and yelled at by a fighter, but that's your job.
No, that it literally is. And that doctor, I mean, it's easy to have the knee-jerk reaction and be like, he never needs to work a UFC event again. No, he just needs some remedial course on what his job is there. Like, again, like I attended the Association of Boxing Commission's referee training, and the one running it at the time was New England's own Kevin McDonald. But he's like, once you've called the doctor in, you are deferring to the doctor's guidance on that. And yeah, Tognoni at that point, he has to wait for the doctor to say yes or no. For the doctor to go in and be like, I don't know, it's worse than unhelpful. And it made a mess out of something that didn't need to be. Like, that was really straightforward. Like, as far as I was concerned, once we saw how bad that cut was, Mayura Bueno Silva basically had until the next lull of any kind in the action. Like, you don't want to stop her when she's in the middle of cranking on an armbar, but like just the next time neither fighter is in serious peril, you stop, you have her examined, and this shit is over. It was directly over the eye. It was bleeding into the eye. That creates an additional hazard. Fight over.
Yeah. So the referee, he wanted the fight stopped. He just didn't want to be the one to call it. He was trying to pass the blame to somebody else. So when everyone gets mad, he go, I didn't stop the fight. The referee did.
Which,
like, that's what I felt like. He was kind of being a wimp, but it's like, no, I know it's not popular and the crowd's going to boo, and so be it. That's your job. Like, they cut that deep. Was it easy? That's a no-brainer, easy stoppage.
Yes.
Shillan's really in a situation where she's on this little bit of winning streak now, and that division is so shallow that probably one more win and she's fighting for the title.
I am completely with you on that, actually. For me, it's just as important that Shillan made weight without incident at 135 twice in a row now. And that just makes everything else even better. Like, she's fighting better to her own natural physical gifts and strengths. She's become a fighter that is pursuing damage and pursuing the finish rather than just like letting them come. Like, she's gotten intense. The potential for greatness was always there. Like, if there was some sort of like weird injury fracas and she got the call for a title fight next, I'm not that mad about it. It's a super, super shallow division. You know, like if I say that she has to fight like Holly Holm or something next, it's more of just a make busy thing. I wouldn't be that mad if she was fighting Pennington next.
Yeah, that's what I chose with Macy's son. I'm going with Holly Holm. I'd probably put her on like a pay-per-view main card or like a really. I mean, I couldn't even do a main event of like a really weak fight night. To me, I wouldn't give her a title shot because you still have, I think, more marketable fights. Julia Pena, Kayla Harrison. To me, those are two. Even Norma DeBont's probably maybe ahead of her. So that's what I would do. As far as Bueno Silva, I mean, this is a go for the title. Is now in a 2-fight losing streak. She's not someone I'm like really trying to market, but she definitely has talent. I'm trying to get her win. I put her in a situation with another fighter who's in kind of a similar situation. I give her Julia Avila.
Yeah, I mean, my only question there would be: is Julia Avila coming back? Last time I saw her, she looked terrible and she had gray hair. But if she wants another fight, I like that.
Ben, you look terrible and you have gray hair.
I completely agree, but I'm also not trying to stay in any UFC title.
Sorry, that was low hanging fruit.
That was
I'm in Vermont, so I'm ready to pick some apples or some shit.
I'm here for it.
All right, and starting the main card, the fight that to me, I still don't understand why this wasn't the co-main event. Now the fight wasn't good, but the marketability wise, this fight seemed like it was getting all the second most buzz, and that was Michael Venom Page taking on Ian Machado Gerry, with Machado Gerry winning decision. This was a close fight. Kind of came down to like the closing seconds of the fight. I scored it for Ian Machado Gerry. Who did you score for?
I scored it for Gerry as well.
Okay.
I gave Gerry the first and third. And here's the thing. I had higher expectations, I think, than most people when Michael Page came to the UFC. I'm like, yeah, I know he's like 36. I know he's not a future champ, but I think we might be surprised by how much he wins and how often he's kind of able to make his thing happen, even against UFC welterweights. Here, even in the round he won, he only looked like Michael Page for about a minute and a half of the round when he was just blistering Gerry with blindingly fast 1-2s. Aside from that, like obviously there was a question of how it would look. Page's very specialized, dazzling kickboxing attack against Gerry's, more conventional but undeniably effective kickboxing. We didn't get to see much of that. Gerry wisely took Page down right away and established himself there. But yeah, even in the second round that I thought Page won, he looked like the highlight reel moving in Matrix time Michael Page, only for a few moments.
Yeah, the problem with Michael Page, to me, he always is his own worst enemy because of his lack of volume. Like he has moments where he's so much better on the feet. He just doesn't throw enough. And I know he's all about countering, trying to get you coming in, hit you off balance, hurting you that way, or suddenly waiting, then he bursts it with 1-2 combination. And the problem is he keeps it close that he allows people to steal it. Like he had half the third round was on the feet, and for like 2.5 minutes, he just stared at Machado Gerry, didn't do much. And because of that, Machado Gerry really just needed a takedown and back control, and he stole the round. And which ultimately stole the fight.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out, so Machado Gerry, he talked so much about during the pre-fight, and I think it was really smart of him. I wanted to switch my pick when they told me, so I picked Michael Page. I wanted to switch my pick to Machado Gerry when they said David Maia was in his corner, and I go, oh, this fucking guy's going to wrestle. Exactly what I said in the preview. If he says he's going to wrestle, I'd pick him. But I don't think he was smart because he tricked me. I was believing him when he was saying, I'm faster than him. I'm younger than him. I'm faster than him. I'm more explosive than him. It's the first time he fights someone who's quicker than him. I thought like, oh, wow, he's going to stand with Michael Page, and that's going to be a real big mistake. I think he did that to have Michael Page think he's going to strike with him, which gave him the opportunities to shoot in. And
in the first round, he caught the first kick that was aimed anywhere above the knee, like topped him with it, dumped him over, and that was the round. Yeah.
And Ian Machado Gerry, for exactly how he needed to, and still barely won a decision. Like, he had the perfect game plan, which he gets a big win. And I did say that I thought Michael Page was like one of the hardest guys in the division stylistically for Ian Machado Gerry. So I think it's good. Like, he passed a test to me that was like a really hard test for him. But his wrestling to me is still such a concern. Like, I don't like his wrestling. And when you have your Shavkats, your Leon Edwards, the Bilal Muhammad's, the top guys in the division, to be really one-dimensional. I know he's a good grappler, but you heard me say this many times. You can be the best jiu-jitsu guy in the world. If you can't get the fight on the ground,
yeah,
cool. Like, it's like having a freaking boat. It's cool, but if you don't have a trailer to bring it to the water, you got a boat sitting in your yard.
that is a perfect way to put it. If you are dependent on your opponent to make a mistake in order to get the fight into your world, you're not going to win on any consistent basis in the UFC.
Yeah, like, I don't feel better about Machado Gerry getting a big win against a guy, like I said, that was a tough test for him than I did. No, he's still super young, and so
and because of the weird drama, he is literally bouncing from one camp to the next, from fight to the next, one fight to the next. It would be great if he found a gym long term and actually just settled down there, because I think it's tough to work on the stuff you had to bring back. Like, he had stuff to bring back to the drawing board after this fight. It's going to be easier to work on that if you're going back to the same people that coached you for the last one. Rather than people who have to do tape study of your last fight and be like, okay, here's what went right, here's what went wrong against Page. I would love to see him find some stability. If he wants to stay at Shoot a Box of Diego Lima, that'd be fantastic. He's already got blonde hair, so he fits in.
He seems like he seems like he's really embraced like the Brazilian culture and language and everything. And obviously he has probably a Brazilian wife, and they said his kid only speaks Portuguese, so I get it. As far as Michael Page, like, you just made a Sound of Music reference. Like, what would you do with Maria? What would you do with, how do you solve a problem like MVP? Same way you've been solving a problem for a decade. This guy has not proved his wrestling. Like, I said on the preview, his submission defense is very underrated. He's hard to sub, but his general understanding of balance, like, there was a part, and I'm glad that Rogan and DC was both saying this, where Ian Machado Gerry was riding really high and like shake, and you'll slowly get him to fall off, and like, he didn't do it for like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and probably cost him the fight. Like that he still doesn't have that basic balance, and I don't know, just. You've been doing this for like 10 years, dude.
Yeah, that's the main point. He's been doing this for a long time at this point. It never really, really, really cost him in Bellator, but it puts a hard cap on what he can do in the UFC. It makes him a curiosity, a mid-card attraction, and a source of hopefully occasional highlights at best from here on out.
Yeah, I agree. So as far as matchmaking, I felt like Machado Gerry is probably the easiest guy on the card to match next.
Okay, what's your thought?
You gotta do it. You gotta do him versus Colby Covington. Co-main event of a massive pay-per-view.
It makes all the sense in the world to me. Gerry obviously has a pretty engaging personality. It goes better if he is talking with somebody that can kind of hold up their end of the conversation and then some. Covington, I mean, considering how many things fans take Gerry to task for, fairly or not, like, it would give so much comedic gold to Colby Covington that he would like make jingling sounds as he walked up to the podium for like, seriously.
I also think of it as like, you don't have much time left with Colby. Like, you don't want to waste him against somebody. You got to get the very. To me, Colby's like going out of business sale where you sell everything you can before people realize it. Like, you're going out of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, do you want to waste that on a? I don't know who's someone in the division that's rising up. Like, could you book Colby against Neil Magny, and maybe Colby pulls a win, and then you can try to build him up a little bit. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, or you could put
a very
Colby,
good chance he loses to Neil Magny, and you're like, well,
yeah. Or you put Colby against, Michael Morales, but he beats Morales, and then what are you left with?
Yeah.
You know, like Colby's stock doesn't rise any. He just, has another paycheck coming.
And to me, they're so similar in the sense of like their fan bases, where like Colby has like this sect of people who like him, and then he also has all the villains. Like there's no one like middle of the ground, like wishy-washy with Colby. Either you love him or you hate him. Ian Machado Gerry is the same exact way. You either love him or hate him. So depending on where you put it, you can make it a Colby crowd if you want to be a Colby crowd. You can make it a Machado crowd if you want to make a Machado crowd.
And the part of Colby, that's left once he takes the sunglasses and the MAGA hat and the personality off, that's a reasonably intelligent, long-time contender in one of the toughest divisions in the sport, watched the fight tonight and is like, oh, dude, give me this guy. Like, yeah. I guarantee you that Covington is more confident in his ability to handle Ian Garry after tonight. I don't know whether he's right or not.
Yeah, I think he's wrong. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I think
he's a guy that looks at people's wrestling first, because he's like, when I've lost is when I've gone up against other guys that are like great wrestlers, and I just didn't have quite enough.
Yeah. MVP, I kind of feel like he's similar about where he's kind of going out of business sales to try to make the best matches you can with him as possible. To me, it's Stephen Thompson. It's a fight that people wanted for a long time.
It is, and interestingly, Paige said like wish for it if you want, but that fight might not be as exciting as you think it will be. But nonetheless, I think you make it.
But the build-up would be. The build-up would be, because nothing else is going to get you excited. And Michael Venom Page, I mean, none of his fights have been exciting. His highlights are exciting. But yes. I mean, go back to the Kevin Holland fight. It wasn't like super exciting.
And
it's like
that was.
I would say. I knew a guy that like he loved watching the highlights of like college football players when he did a fantasy football draft. I'm like, oh, you typed in some guy's highlights. He looks good. Like, no shit, they're called highlights. Like I can make anybody look good with highlights.
Oh yeah, like Clay Guida's highlight reel looks amazing.
Yeah, we could have Sam Alvey if we really cut it up and make it seem like he was a freaking big bombing slugger.
Yeah. No, and Page, even in his debut against Kevin Holland, like it gave us a few highlights, but there were also big stretches of the fight that just weren't that exciting. I think you do that. Like, I'm more convinced than ever that, I mean, Bellator drops the ball a lot, but Bellator had Michael Page and Lorenz Larkin in the same division for like 6 years and never made them fight each other. I really wish they had. Anyway, get UFC, re-sign Lorenz Larkin just for this fight.
Bellator booked British fighter Michael Page versus British rival Paul Daly. Had him fight in Mohegan Sun, middle of nowhere woods of Connecticut. I'm glad I was there though. But all right, so that's the main card. Let's go to the prelims. We'll go a little faster on the prelims, just for time's sakes. Joe Piper took on Marc-Andre Barriault, winning by first round knockout. In the preview, you asked me, do I still believe in Joe Piper? We both kind of agreed that we still believe him. This is why. This right here is why you believe in him, because he does moments like this. I mean, he hit Marc-Andre Barriault. He face planted him. It looked like a hunter shooting a doe, a deer, a female deer.
I completely, I love that reference. Excellent job. And he got a little of that Igor Vovchanchyn thing where Barriault was already dead and Piper hit him.
Nice, good reference.
With another shot on the way down, so that he went down. Like when you go down face down, arms at the sides, you know that dude is astral traveling. Like Barriault in his mind had like escaped the talent show and was walking over the mountains into Switzerland. Like he was.
That's it. To me, Piper looks like he still looks like a top 15 guy. Like I believe in him.
He does. And here's the thing: Piper has some holes in his game, but it's middleweight. You can make your way into the top 10. You can make your way to title shots with some holes in your game. When you have that kind of power and that kind of athleticism, he's going to win a lot of fights.
Oh yeah. You talk about that division. I mean, the champion has tons of holes in the game. The guy he beat for the title had a bunch of holes in his game.
Yeah. There you go.
I like Piper's personality. Like he's got this like I'm angry, like for no reason,
dude.
And
When you're a 3-1 favorite and you're trying to play the like nobody believed in me card, like,
He's almost 4-1 favorite, right? When they
yeah.
close. Yeah, yeah. No, everyone said I was gonna lose. Like, who?
Who?
Who said you're gonna lose? You know? I'm still giving him like I'm throwing right back in against top 15 guy. And because he has like he's one of the few guys that like you got guys at middleweight that don't have personalities, Cannoniers or Marvin Vittori. I mean, Vittori has a little bit, but Jack Hermanson, guys like that don't have. I want him. Piper has personality. Give me Piper versus Paulo Costa. I'll put it right back in the main event of a fight night.
Because I was on board. Like when we talk about matchups, if the fighter themselves calls for one that's reasonable, I'm usually like, give the man what he wants. I'm all for realistic call out. So I was fine with him fighting Paul Craig. Like it would be a suitable test if Craig made it out of the first 2 minutes. But I like Costa even better because that's one you can put further up a card.
Yeah, there's no way Paul Craig.
Like that, dude, that's a fight night main event easy.
Yeah, that's what I was going with, a fight night main event. Before that, the old men slugged it out, and even though Andre Fili's not that old, he took on Cub Swanson, winning a split decision. This is probably the most controversial scores. I looked at MMA decisions. I had it 29-28 for Swanson. It was 13-2 on MMA decisions for Swanson.
Yeah, I had it for Swanson as well, and I feel good about this one. Like, we haven't talked too much about how our picks went. I mean, I picked Fili to win this one, but I said it felt super close to me, and that Swanson is just surprisingly competitive this late in his career, and doggone it, he was. And here I scored the fight for him, even if Fili ended up getting the win. So while my pick was right, I feel like I backed into that part, but my analysis feels pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, it was a good night, I think, for our, I don't know what exactly picks were, but I think overall it was pretty good.
We both flubbed on Simone and Jordan, and dude, I made one of my worst picks of the year, picking Waterson Gomez over Robertson. We'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. I picked Michael Page over Ian Machado Gerry. So
but that's not a horrible call.
No, and I said if Gary wrestles, he's probably gonna win. So I didn't think he was gonna wrestle, but good for him. Swanson, I actually thought Swanson looked all right. Like, he pressured Fili. What he was good at, he was beating him to the punch when he was throwing, but he was fighting off his back foot the whole time. But what I do like is every time Swanson started getting going, Fili would clinch him and kind of like stop his momentum. That's why the fight was really close. He added a couple takedowns. Even though, like, sometimes I say, I missed the decision, had a 13-2, so this guy should have won. Sometimes, like, yeah, but it just because 15 guys watch a fight and 13 score one way doesn't mean that it wasn't super close.
Right.
That could have went the other way. Like, I could easily have switched my pick to Fili. Like, the third round, like, I could have scored the third round for Fili.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was unanimous for Swanson, that doesn't change that it was a super close fight. Like,
exactly. Yeah. I will say this: like, I don't feel good about, like, Swanson looked better than I thought, but still moving forward in that division, I don't feel good. I'm fading both these guys.
I agree with you. Fili is a very shop-worn 33 or whatever he is.
Yeah,
and Fili was almost the most forgiving matchup for Swanson, kind of in that general range of the rankings. Like, anyone ranked higher than Fili and maybe a few ranked lower than him would have clocked Swanson tonight. So
yeah. Probably our worst pick is we both picked Charles Jourdain to beat Gene Silva. Gene Silva won by second round together. Now, Silva missed weight, so it wasn't all good, but everything else was great, man. The dude looked much better than I thought. Like, he had serious power. Like, he was landing power shots. He dropped Jourdain. Jourdain's known for his durability. Like, say what you want, Jourdain's hittable, but he doesn't stop. This guy was stopping him in his tracks with shots and eventually put him out. Yeah, dude, this I was really, really impressed by this one. Dude, the Fighting Nerds, man, that's a good team. They just keep winning.
They keep winning. Obviously, they've got a built-in kind of personality. They got the pair of glasses that get passed around. But yeah, they have a bunch of good fighters, and they have a bunch of good fighters kind of with different body types and different styles. That's not as common.
Yeah, what I thought about Gene Silva when I saw a guy who loaded up. I thought like he's a Vanderlei Silva where he throws hard, powerful, wild shots, and I'm like, the problem is he's in the wrong era. Like he's a smaller Vanderlei. He wants to fight like Vanderlei Silva, and that just doesn't work anymore. Well, he was a little sharper. Like he wasn't as wild, but he was through hard and it was powerful. And he was a little faster than I thought. So, Gene Silva, I'm changing my scouting report on this guy.
I'm with you on all counts there, because here's the thing. I agree with you. And when I picked Jourdain, again, both of us thought this was probably a close fight, but I thought, Jourdain has kind of underrated wrestling that he can turn to if things aren't going his way on the feet. He turned to his wrestling in the first round as soon as he started tasting that power. And so I thought Jourdain actually, to the extent that Jourdain ever does, fought to his best advantage and tried to give himself the best chance to win. And it just didn't matter. And I'll have to back off on the 2005 shoot a box slugger comparisons, because the uppercut that he finished Jourdain with was a tricky and subtle piece of work where he just kind of clocked him on the break, fought off a takedown. And normally, I think in fighters' minds, they're like, okay, this is reset time. I'm going to take a step or two away, and then we'll both agree to come back and fight. It's kind of the way Jack Hermanson tapped out Kelvin Gastelum a couple years ago, just catching Gastelum at the moment where every fighter thinks, okay, he's holding on to my foot, but in a sec, he's going to let go and he'll stand up and we'll go back to fighting. Like, he caught Jourdain on the break and
it was beautiful.
Made him pay. That was brutal.
Yeah, look good. Speaking of look good, dude, Peyton Talbot took on Giannis Gamori, winning by first round TKO. 19 seconds, the first 1-2 combination he threw. I mean, the hills are alive in the Sound of Music, but I don't know if Gamori's alive. Dude, he was knocked dead by Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot was a negative 1,600. He almost broke Bo Nichols' record for the biggest favorite this year, or all time actually. He was this huge favorite, and other than not going to get like this, when you're a negative 1,600, you have to knock a guy out in 20 seconds for people to be impressed.
When you're that big a favorite, you have to do a whole hell of a lot, even to just kind of hold steady, let alone raise your stock. But he did raise his stock with me, and the way he did it was, if you looked at my scouting report on Talbot ahead of this, there's a ton of positives, and not even a negative, but a question mark would have been, I don't know about his one-shot power. Like, so far, he's been overwhelming people with pressure, pace, volume. He's getting a ton of finishes, but it's usually because he swarmed a guy and hit him like 18 times in 10 seconds. Here, just absolutely icing a guy that really has not been known as a chinny fighter. Okay, well, we cross off that question mark. In just 19 seconds of work, he proved something to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I'm not going to, you learn too much about him, but now all of a sudden that's a box checked. I mean, he's fast, and, I'm always still worried about his defense, but I wrote down right away before, when they went to the commercial break and, before he could get interviewed, I wrote, like, don't rush him. He's only 25. Like, he's 25 going on 26, but, don't rush him. But then he called out Adrian Giannis, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Sometimes when the guy sometimes you gotta say, hey, see what happens.
Hey, I think that's appropriate, actually, because Yanez made it as far as kind of the outskirts of the top 15, but he's had a couple of setbacks recently, and he's had a couple of setbacks in what we thought was his wheelhouse. Like, he's gotten outstruck a couple of times recently. I liked it as a call out. Like, I'm a big Adrian Yanez fan. He's a Houston guy. I know him a little, but dude, Talbot's going to go into that fight and be like minus 400.
Dude, that fight would be fire, though.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
Especially with Talbot's defense and Giannis's striking style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Giannis has some striking issues too. I mean, that'd be fun while it lasts. So yeah, give me all of that. So, and make it a big fight. Make it like a co-main event. Like, make a fight night co-main event, or make it a shit. If the UFC really believes in Talbot, make it the opener of like a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, Talbot is from Nevada. Like, I know that Reno and Las Vegas are not terribly close. Like, Nevada, like Texas, is a big place, but it doesn't really matter when you're booking Apex fights. But if you put them, first or second fight on a pay-per-view main card, like getting some local pop would be great. Like the UFC still has a problem with the T-Mobile Center being like super empty until the last 3 fights of the night, on its pay-per-views.
Yeah, which I
Talbot
never.
could help that a little bit.
Yeah, I never said that. So I'm
Like,
giving
dude, you paid $600 for this ticket.
Yeah.
Like, why are you not actually taking advantage of what? Anyway,
I tell people, I'm like, people have, like, I tell my friends, it's like, oh, when's the real fight's going? I'm like, no, every fight. And I always tell the same story. I said, I remember watching Conor McGregor. I went to the UFC in Boston. I was there. Obviously, I was there as soon as doors opened. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this is before I worked for Sherdog. I was there for Conor McGregor fighting Max Holloway on a prelim fight. Imagine that fight now.
Yep.
So you never know. I saw fucking John Jones fight in a ballroom in Worcester, Massachusetts. So Michelle Waterson took on Jillian Robinson, and holy shit, did Jillian Robinson beat the piss out. One of the biggest mysteries of this card is how could only one judge score one? So out of the 3 judges, only one judge gave one round a 10-8 round.
And all 3 of them could have been 10-8.
I went 10-8. I scored 30.4.
That is a justifiable scorecard. Like, I went 30-26. I didn't go 10-8 until the last round. If I watched it again right now, I think at least the second and third would be 10-8 rounds. Here's the thing. Either Michelle Waterson Gomez really was completely shot and is walking away at the right time, or Jillian Robertson is shoring up the biggest hole in her game. Because I said before, she's a grappler who has historically lacked the ability to get decent strawweights on the ground on her terms at the time and place of her choosing. That was not a problem here. She got Waterson Gomez down with conventional takedowns. She got standing back takes. She kind of muscled her around. Like,
her.
And once they were on the ground, she dominated. It was over. And here's the thing. Like, a lot of fans have been kind of hard on the Goat Shed, and it's because they're so weird and gimmicky and loud.
Them. Oh, I love the freaking president choking people out and shit. I love them.
Like they made a big mess of Karate Combat this weekend.
Yeah, I love it.
But I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And while some fighters have gone there and not gotten better, they maybe just have a way with the women, because she and Eileen Perez have both shown market improvement since they've been at the Lonely Goat Shed. I don't know.
If Jillian Robinson gets you on the ground, she is good down there. I mean, I love that she's going to this body lock and almost running she goes call it misdirection. Kind of, you force them going one way, and when they pull back, you use the momentum with them, or she's running the pipe on the single. She gets down, man. She's tough on top.
She is, and we have up until now gotten a few chances to see her on top. So we see her throwing up low percentage stuff from the bottom, stuff that doesn't lead to consistent victories in modern MMA. But between her pushing towards 30, like probably just now growing into her full on strength, between her new training home and her getting people on the ground and her being able to set up a top position, man, she is heavy on top. Like, she was really good at, and this is a way over the next hill comparison, but she had kind of a Glover Teixeira thing going, where she just was relentlessly moving to advanced position while throwing not a flurry of frantic strikes, but just precise, sporadic strikes that hurt like hell. And as soon as the fighter turns their back or gives you any opening, works for a choke. Where, I might not get the choke this time, but it's just going to keep you reeling for that much longer. It was a brutally heavy top position performance for Jillian Robertson.
I want to see Glover Teixeira with long red hair, bright red hair. Glover Teixeira.
That would.
Obviously, the biggest story of the night. We started the main event talking about a 3-weight champion in Alex Pereira. 3-weight champion Michelle Waterson retired. One of the greatest, probably the greatest female fighter of all time. She won everything: UFC titles, Strikeforce, Invicta, Pride. I think she won a championship in boxing. I think, all right, because I mean, that's what it seemed like when she retired, right? She accomplished all that thing, right? She had this huge retirement package for her.
Yeah. I mean, like the only fighter really close to her in terms of pound for pound accomplishment, either gender, any weight class, would be Alan Joban. Because when he retired, the UFC gave us like a 5-minute, like, farewell thing.
Yeah, I was a little. I mean, whatever. It was actually, I don't mind it. It was just I had to make a little joke on Michelle Watterson. She retired. She seemed like a really good, like one of the good ones in MMA. Like some things I remember as, first of all, just an atom weight fighting up her whole career in the UFC. She's obviously undersized. Being people always miscategorizing her as this dynamic striker, which was probably even better. Wrestling.
The wrestling MILF. Yep.
And then obviously, just being a pioneer of women MMA. Like I don't think of her as a pioneer like Megumi Fuji's or anything, but like the more modern female fighters.
Of those fighters that bridge the era between when women fought in the UFC and when they didn't. Like for better or worse, within a year from like 2012 to 2013, Dana went from saying literally women will never fight in the UFC to, oh, hello, Ronda Rousey. It took like a year for that to flip. But for women that started before that, when the top thing they could ever aspire to was to win a title in like jewels, and be getting paid like $5,000 a fight, to I can make it to the UFC and I might not match up to one of the top 2 biggest stars in the sport, but that avenue is at least open to me. Like it's a possibility now. Like the women who were putting in the hard hours before then are pioneers of a sort as well. And Michelle Watterson, as someone who was a champ around that time, absolutely fits in the discussion.
Yeah, and don't forget, she was one of the first people to actually do the desk. She got away from that, but she was doing the desk for a while back in the day.
And if she wants to go back to that, she would be fantastic.
Ooh, absolutely. Speaking of retirements, Andrei Arlovski took on Martin Badai winning a split decision. This fight sucked. We all knew it would suck. MMA Decisions had it 7-5 for Arlovski, though. I scored it for Badai. I don't even want to talk about this fight to argue one way or the other.
Dude, all I'll say is this. John Anik is a consummate professional. Some people don't like him. I don't understand why. I think he sets the all-time standard for professionalism as a play-by-play guy. Yeah. And he was going into how bad this fight was by the end.
Oh, DC and Joe Rogan.
DC and Rogan start cutting up right away.
Yeah.
You can tell they're bored when they start talking about other stuff. But Anik was like, for a fight this bad, you'd have to go back to, and he's like naming other fights that were terrible.
Yeah, he named the Gabriel Gonzaga fight, but he forgot about that Gonzaga fight. That Gonzaga won by knockout, though.
Gonzaga versus Evgeny Arakin. Yeah, like that.
I might be mixed. I might be mixing up my fight. So I apologize. Mr. Anik. Mr. Anik would probably never be wrong. So I'm probably wrong. I think I was mixing up a fight.
But yeah, this fight was terrible. I scored it for Arlovski, and I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care either. Like whatever, that fight was terrible.
Like in fact, if he got a little bit robbed, but it convinces them to retire quicker, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I said it on the previous show, and I still stand by this. He does nothing well. I mean, Rogan and DC, like one thing they'll say, they'll remember a quality in a guy that they had a decade ago, and just keep harping on that one quality that's been gone.
They're not even 2 decades ago. Yeah.
They're not even doing that anymore. They're not talking about, Arlovski's a good grappler. It's like, wait, because he subbed Tim Sylvia 20 fucking years ago, or he can really crack because he knocked out Paul Bonatello 20 years ago. He knocked out Justin Eilers. Like they weren't even doing that. They were coming straight out saying, like, I think DC said, yeah, when you're at this age and nobody wants to see, people are not excited to see you fight anymore. Maybe you should think about it. They were like having an actual, like how we talk about Arlovski, they were actually doing it during the broadcast. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's great. But
I mean, Arlovski is, and in the Sherdog Slack, we were trying to discuss, because I brought up Arlovski's and Buffer are they the only 2 people that were at the UFC before Dana White that are still on payroll? And a couple others got thrown out. Rogan started at UFC 15. Josh Hedges, one of their photographers, has been there since like 2000. But yeah, there's like 4 people in the UFC that have been there literally longer than the president of the company. But one of them is still putting on the gloves. We don't know why, but he still is.
Arlovsky's so freaking old. The guy's as old as Julie Andrews. Like, time to hang it up. All right, let's move on. Before that,
Julie Andrews can still get it. Cuteness has no expiration date.
There you go. Carlos Hernandez took on. I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I apologize. It's someone.
You won't butcher it as bad as Buffer.
Okay, well, yeah. Some guy would not give me credit for talking about this till 3:00 morning. He'll just give me shit for not pronouncing his name right. Ray Tsuruya.
Tsuruya. The T is completely. It's basically silent in English. Ray Tsuruya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I like this kid. I mean, he's only 22 years old. He's, his wrestling is very good. Like, good entries, very creative. I mean, he kept going for a twister, and everyone's ignoring. Dude also had Carlos Hernandez in a crucifix for like half a round, which is nasty. Just being in it hurts. Never mind getting in it and then get elbowed in the head on top of that. That said, I said this in the previous show. I'm gonna say it again. Hernandez is a guy I want to take soon in a fight. He is so underrated. I mean, a lot of guys aren't getting out of the subs that Tsuruya was putting him in. And that actually winning the third round, like, I like Hernandez.
Me too. Hernandez is better than his record shows. Tsuruya, I am tentatively ready to call him the real deal. I mean, he did some things in this fight that I think he'd be well served to move away from as he moves up to better and better flyweights. Like, going for a twister repeatedly, on the one hand, it's impressive because if you're even going for a twister, you already have the guy in a pretty bad position.
Yeah.
But there are other higher percentage things he could have done that might have finished the fight. Like, if you're trying to go for a twister, you could also just start punching the guy in the face. Going for leg locks anytime, dude, there's something more productive you could be doing. But aside from that, his ground game is the genuine article. Like, really, really outstanding high-level wrestling.
Yeah, he almost Matt Lillard, Nico Vitali's himself when he went for a lateral, later smack on his own head.
Yeah, and Hernandez landed on top, and
for some of you guys out there. But yeah, I like. Do I believe in the guy? I do. I think this guy could be future top 15 guy, maybe even top 5. So, and opening the night, Ricky Simon took on Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira winning by unanimous decision. I was impressed with a lot of things Oliveira did. One was, I think, his mindset in this fight. Anytime Simone hit him, he never let Simone get going. He would come back with like a 5-punch combination, and just like, every time I hit you, I'm gonna hit you more times. Simone seemed to be so worried about, like, Oliver must hit hard because he seemed so worried to get in the pocket with him in the one areas that Simone was having success. He seemed like he was really worried. And then when he hurt his leg, Simone made a massive mistake. Like, he had a chance to finish him, and then he comes out in the third round and he just puts it on cruise and like never goes after that leg again, never turns it up. I'm like, dude, this is your one chance. He should have been kicking that leg over and over and over again. And they let him off the hook. Yeah,
impressive performance by Oliveira. I don't really want to take anything away from that, but win or lose, this is about as bad as I've seen Ricky Simon look, because generally speaking, even in a loss, Simon has reliably done the things that he's good at. Like, he is the ultimate, I stick with what brought me to the dance fighter, and it's either good enough to win or not. But here, he was a wrestle boxer without much of the wrestling or boxing. It doesn't help that, Oliveira clearly put him on notice with the power. And I mean, at one point, I think he was like 2 for 11 on takedown attempts. And the 2 times he got Oliveira down, he bounced back up within 5 seconds. So, yeah.
All right, guys, we have covered all 13 fights. Let's get into some fun stuff. Let's do this one. I think it's going to be quick as well. Let's do the cut list.
Okay.
So the way the cut list works, if both me and Ben have the same fighter on the cut list, we give the UFC permission to get rid of this person to make space for other people, especially with the Contender Series coming up. We definitely have to make some more room. I have one.
Same here.
I'm saying goodbye to Andrei Arlovsky.
I'm saying goodbye to Andrei Arlovsky as well. Like, that's it. I mean, everyone else, even Anthony Smith, who's like lost a bunch of fights recently, there's stuff that he could do.
Yeah. Let's go to the awards. We have the awards.
We do have the awards. Awards. We have a fight of the night. We have 4 performances of the night.
Ooh, they give a lot of money.
I'll say right off the bat that neither Lopez nor Ige are included in any of those. So I'm guessing they just got some extra special fat envelopes.
I thought for sure that was the fight of the night. So fight of the night, and then 4 performance bonuses. Wow. Do you agree with them?
Well, if I understand that Lopez and Ige just got something completely separate from this,
like what I
then I guess I'm okay with them. Yeah, like the rest of them are all pretty sensible.
Yeah, they're like, we're not going to give you even more money. Okay, I'll go with well, the main event, Alex Pereira, definitely. Peyton Talbot was such a massive favorite, but when you do what he did, like that's what you're supposed to do. So I think they get an award. Them two, Pereira and Talbot, Joe Pfeiffer, I would give it to. Last one, I'm probably gonna go Robertson. I mean, the way she dominated, beat him that bad. As far as fight, probably Swanson and Feely. What did you have, Ben? And then
Swanson and Feely, 1 fight of the night. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
Performances of the night go to Talbot, Chasson, Pfeiffer, and Pereira. I'm fine with that as well.
Well, I'm sorry, say those again. Talbot, Pereira,
Chasson, Pfeiffer, and Pereira.
Oh, okay. So skip out Robertson for Chasson. Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
I mean, if Gene Silva hadn't missed weight, he would have been a pretty obvious one to me. But that got to do better.
Oh yeah. All right, let's go to the dude seriously. Do you have any dude seriously, Ben?
I mean, I feel as though we've run down a few of them here. We had a lot of hyperbole that maybe go dude seriously. Just calling Pereira's walkout the greatest of all time again, while Vanderlei Silva is like in some camera angles visible behind you. Calling that face off the greatest of all time while Vanderlei Silva is like right behind you. But
I'll say this, it's up there though. It is up there.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's not completely off board. Like the only real dude seriously moment I had was the Chasson Bueno Silva fight where the doctor just tossed the hot potato back at Chris Tognoni. It's like, dude, seriously? That like your whole job is to authoritatively stop the fight in the interest of fighter safety, and you reneged on your responsibilities. Like, go back to school.
Yeah, I got a couple. We already covered the Joe Pfeiffer screaming. Nobody believes in him, though he was a massive favorite. I got another dude seriously. Vinicius Oliveira's cornerman icing the wrong leg he hurt in between rounds. Like, dude, seriously?
Oh my goodness, that I forgot all about that. That's amazing. Icing the wrong leg.
And then he didn't like correct them. How about Dean Thomas? Like the UFC, I understand they try to have this nice moment with Dean Thomas, like is talking while he's like Julian Robinson's about to fight. But like, dude, seriously, like, do we really need the guy in the background on the phone talking to the broadcast as his fighter's about to fight? Like, shouldn't he be giving him like minute advice or make sure his is like it wasn't like this massive, like whatever, dude. That was bad. I love Dean Thomas being on the broadcast.
Yeah. And pull a double duty, like coaching one of his fighters and then just hopping back on the mic. Always impressive.
Yeah, but like you didn't need the moment with it behind her on a cell phone. You could see him in the talking on a cell phone. And then my last. So we covered the ref with Chris Steiner. So I got one more. Anthony Smith. He's an absolute warrior. I mean, but when he loses a fight and he goes over to like Hunter Campbell and he goes, next time, can I have more time? Dude, seriously? Dan Ige was walking out 10 minutes later. Dude, seriously? Like, you're going to use that excuse?
Seriously, your own opponent, Roman Dolidze, came up a weight class on shorter notice.
Yeah. Dude, seriously? And then when he said, oh, none of the light heavyweights wanted to fight me. That's why middleweight is moving up. I'm like, why wouldn't a light heavyweight say yes to that? They probably didn't go that deep down light heavyweight because I don't think he's imposing too much fear. Anyways, let's Oh, this is a good one. Yeah. Anton Tardif said when the crowd went completely silent when Delici screamed that he was ranked in 2 weight class, like he wanted this big pop, and then, like they were like, "Yay, cool."
It was a Vegas crowd. They might literally have been like, "Who are you?" Like, you know.
Yeah. Let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are stock market reference. You want to be on the Bulls list. You don't want to be on the Bears list. We do it hockey style, 3, 2, 1's kind of stars of the night. Let's go negative first, Ben.
Okay,
Do you mind if I go first?
go for it.
I had a lot, but I'm going to start with Myra Bueno Silva. She was looking out good, but man, she's lost 2 in a row now. I mean, it isn't the end of the world because that division is so shallow, but still, like she was a girl that I think she was the favorite against Raquel Pennington, or at least was like a close to a pick 'em in that fight. And now she's lost 2 in a row, so her stock is going down. My number 2, it's got to be MVP. I mean, the guy's 37, and like I just said about Mario Bueno Silva being a shallow division, that is not the case at welterweight. Like you can, I mean, you think about the runs that, like, I mean, I know he's not this guy, but like Bilal Muhammad's had to go on and other fighters. He couldn't take a loss. He pretty much, if he ever is going to be UFC champion, he's got to go undefeated the rest of the way until he's champion. Now he can't ever afford another loss in the UFC.
I don't think he could have afforded it tonight. I think this was
I think it's very unlikely. I mean, I thought it was unlikely to win the title anyways, but yeah.
He's going to have to win 2 more from here just to get a fight against a fighter that would move him back up the rankings. Like,
yeah. It was an easier road when the Von Trapp family went over the friggin' Swiss Alps to escape
for sure.
than the MVP is going to have to do to get to the title. And number 1, I mean, it's got to be Jiri Prochazka. I mean, when you fight a rematch against a champion, you always take that chance that you got to go way down. He's got 2 knockout losses in a row. And say what you want, man. This guy's been in so many wars. Even his wins, he takes unnecessary damage. I'm worried about just his chin failing him. I mean, it was one of the worst knockouts. I mean, he's get picked up at Herb Dean. He's falling over. They're catching him, and it was bad. So, Jiri Prochazka, who you have for Bears?
I agree with all yours, so I'm not going to add 3 whole more candidates, but I'm going to throw in Ricky Simon. Like I just said when we talked about his fight, win or lose, he's always just kind of been a reliably old school wrestle boxer and a good test. I mean, not even a gatekeeper to the top 10, but more like a gatekeeper to the top 7 or 8. Like, because he was a consistently top 10 guy himself. This was the first fight in a while where I just remember him actually looking bad and not looking like a top 15 bantamweight. So it's going to be on him to prove that this was a one-off thing. And then
it's been a while now.
Yeah. After that, I'm just going to throw in the old folks. There were about 5 or 6 fights on this card where one fighter either was like around a decade older than their opponent or was just perceived to be the more shop-worn fighter on the tail end of their career. While a couple of them were contentious, close decisions, all of them lost.
Yeah.
Arlovsky, Waterson Gomez, Swanson, Page, Smith, all of them lost.
Yeah, how about the old Jackson Wink squad? I mean, they're not all with Jackson Wink anymore, but Arlovsky, Waterson, and Swanson going 0-3 of the night.
I think Arlovsky has a gym bag at about 5 different gyms.
Yeah,
like
I'm saying he was with Jackson Wink with that.
Yeah, he was with Jackson Wink tonight.
No, not tonight. No, tonight he was with I think he was with American Top Team. Mike
oh no, yes, right. I'm sorry. He's with. He
was with Jackson Wink for a long time with Waterson and Swanson, and like Waterson, Swanson, I think they're still there.
Yeah, Waterson definitely was. Like, I mean, Waterson's lived in New Mexico for like 10 years now. Yeah.
Do you have anybody else?
No, I'll just add.
All right, let's go to the Bulls list. These are the people who had a great night or storyline or something. Ben, I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. Bottom of my list, top of the card, Alex Pereira. Yeah, he's just knocking out a guy that he knocked out 7 months ago, but he knocked him out even worse because the first one was kind of an arguably early stoppage in a fight that he had been losing. And I'm not crying robbery over the stoppage in that first fight. I think all it did was save Prochazka 5 or 6 more punches to the head. Here, there was no doubt, and Pereira was on top the whole way. I mean, the guy is now defending titles in the second division. People are talking about him moving up to heavyweight, and agree or not, nobody's laughing about it. This guy is ascending the ranks of the most accomplished fighters we've ever seen in shockingly quick fashion. Like that's a hell of a thing, and we're here to see it.
He understands like now is the time for him. He wants to fight right now. He wants to fight next week.
Joe Pyfer. If Dana White likes you, you're going to get a lot of rope. He doesn't need a lot of rope. He's not Raquel Pennington, where for some reason Dana likes her, and because of that, she's gotten forever and she's always close to the title picture. Like, he's a big, angry middleweight that's knocking people the hell out, and he bounced back in definitive fashion from his first UFC loss. It's a good time to be Joe Pyfer. Number 1. And there are a lot I could choose here, but I will throw out Peyton Talbot. Like we said, when you're a minus 1,600 favorite, you have to do a lot to improve your stock or impress people. For me, he checked off one of the last remaining boxes. I don't know if he's a future champ, but I do now know that he has one-shot power if he needs it. Peyton Talbot, one of the hottest prospects in the UFC right now, and that's saying a lot because there's been a big influx, especially in the lower weight classes, of your Saruyas, your Tairas, your that are out there making big waves, but Talbot's as exciting as any of them.
I agree with all yours. So I'll add some more to the list. I don't think he had the best performance. Like, I don't feel like good picking him moving forward, but he's right. He's got an argument to be ranked in 2 different weight classes. I'm gonna go Roman Dolidze. My number 2, she's won 4 out of 5 fights. Jillian Robinson. I mean, we kind of like written her off because of, she's been in the UFC so long. She has so many losses in the UFC, but she came in the UFC so young that she's probably just in her prime years now. So maybe she'll be one of those like Jan Blachowicz type runs to the title. All of a sudden you're like, holy shit, we didn't believe it. And like, now look at it. And my number 1, I mean, I'm putting 2 people at number 1. One of the craziest moments I can remember in MMA. It's got to be Dan Ige and Diego Lopes. What they did to keep this, and I know a lot of people always going to mention Dan Ige. Same with Diego Lopes, with all the shit that he had to do in the last 24, 48 hours with weight classes and accepting it. To me, these guys, this fight, like living legend. I mean, like the fight wasn't the greatest fight, but just legendary stuff. Like, who else is doing shit like that? That's fantastic. So respect those guys. Those 2 will be respected by the MMA community forever. So big ups to those guys. What was your grade for the card, Ben?
Gotta give this one an A-. Like,
wow.
It's like, I was thoroughly entertained for most of the card. Like, there were 2 fights on this card that I expected to be terrible, and of those 2, only one of them was even terrible. Like, and then the shakeup in most cases led to interesting results. We learned a few things. Yeah, like, and again, there's a little bit of all's well that ends well, and the main card was pretty damn good. So yeah, I'm gonna give it an A-. Not gonna be on my top 5 events of the year, but it was good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B. There was a lot of decisions early that kind of pulled this card down, but I feel what Diego Lopes and Dan Ige did was historic. That's something that could be such memorable. And then the performance in the main event really pulled the grade up for me. So I'll go B. Always the hardest question: who is your listener of the night?
Oh man, there were a lot of really good ones. One Foot Out the Door and Anthony Tardif were both outstanding. I think Matthew Rosser was new. He definitely gets my Rookie of the Year. Big ups to all the people that chimed in the first 15 minutes and said they like won money like off of our picks. Please bet responsibly. But if you made some money doing what we say,
nice.
Congratulations.
Nice.
You know what? I think it goes to Anthony Tardif. Just interesting takes, a few funny ones. Good participation throughout the night. Anthony Tardif, nearing that you've won it 5 times, you're in the Hall of Fame and can't win any more territory. But really good stuff.
Yeah, he's down to become that like top of the card guy, getting the bonuses. Yeah. I'm gonna. Yeah, I had a couple people I really liked. I like this Eamon report. I haven't seen that person around.
Yeah.
They has a really good quote. But I'm gonna go with the guy that has won this award, maybe more than anybody. He's way up there. I would go with my man Chris Wiz. The guy was killing it all night. A lot of
Yeah.
volume, a lot of good content. That's my
I
boy.
think of Chris Wiz as a Hall of Famer at this point,
Yeah,
but otherwise he would have definitely been up there for me. I mean, I can't pick myself, but I would tonight because there's 15 songs on the Sound of Music soundtrack. I dropped references to 8 of them tonight. That's batting
yeah,
better than 500. Even in
yeah.
girls softball, that's enough
That's
to
pretty good.
yeah.
That's almost as high as my daughter's
Uh,
batting average right now.
oh, it's Iman report. So
I never
anyone
I
listening, it
apologize.
is pronounced Iman. Thank you.
I apologize. So we will. That is it, guys. We've covered it. UFC 303. I think we've gone more in depth than anybody in the industry will. We'll be off for a week. I will be dancing in the hills up here in Vermont, but we'll be back. It was supposed to be Rose Namajunas versus Macy Barber. Now it's Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez card. We'll be posting that early next week, and then obviously we'll be back to recap that one live. We thank you guys for joining us. Wish everybody a happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to you, Ben.
Hey, you know what? Independence Day, a week off from previewing fights, grilling everything in sight. Those are a few of my favorite things. So,
Nice.
happy
Good
one to
job.
you as well, sir.
And to all my wife and to anybody who's Canadian, happy Canada Day on July 1st. And all I have to say is so long, farewell.